So a lot of what I'm sharing today, or actually most of it, is really based heavily on some of the lessons that I've learned through a course that I took with a consultant that specializes in using LinkedIn particularly as a means of connecting with ideal clients. And her name is Leah Niederthal. She runs a company called Smart Gets Paid. And I felt that in the process of participating in the ICTIG conversations, I noticed that there were some folks who really kind of had questions around how we can start, as consultants, can start connecting with ideal clients and where we can kind of get people more engaged in our services and raise awareness. And so I thought that these would be super fun tips to share. These are things that have worked for me, which I'll get into a little bit more toward the end of the presentation. And I'd be happy to take any questions that you all have toward the end as well. But before we begin, I would like to actually try something, and I'm hoping that this works. It's activated on my computer, so we will see. So I have used this tool called Poll Everywhere sometimes with audiences, just to kind of gauge how, what the audience is, like, and kind of what their interests are. And so I thought I'd start with just a few questions to understand who we have in the room today. So I'll activate this poll and let's see if it works. What I'll ask you to do is, if you have your cell phones handy, to please pull them out. And if you don't have your cell phone, you can respond at the website that you see on the top. It's pollev.com/myname453. Otherwise, if you have your phone, if you can just text Naaima Khan 453 as it's written there to 22333. And then, wow, once a couple of you, it seems like some of you have answered a question already. So if you get your answers in, the question is, how many years have you been consulting? And I'll give folks a couple of minutes to get there, to text it in. Once you do it once, it's a lot easier for the remaining questions. So. Nice. Okay. Right now we have a pretty broad spread there. It's getting a little bit more even. Give one more minute.
Is this embedded in your presentation somehow,
yeah,
or did you?
It is. So Poll Everywhere is an app that you can get. It's an add-in to PowerPoint. So if you have it running on your computer, I think it works more optimally. But you can, once you've logged in to it and kind of set up your account, you can just embed it straight into your PowerPoint. So, okay, seems like we have a decent spread here with some kind of big tails going on with the either 0 to 3 or the 15+ years. So we have a good mix of folks in terms of how many years of consulting we've had in the room. Pretty skewed on the ends there. So a lot with 15+ and a lot with 0 to 3. Very cool. So I'll now do the next. So don't put your phones away. We have a few more. I'm trying to make this a little bit more engaging for you all, right? So second question is, how much time do you spend, or do you spend time on social media, right? We don't have to get into all the confessions today. We won't be going deep here, but just to get a sense how much of how many people spend time on social media in general. No, this is kind of a context setting question. It's like, is this really a question? Doesn't everybody spend time on social media? I'd actually be surprised. But okay, we'll see. So this is a hard one because I can't necessarily see how many responses are coming in. And I think we're at 100% and we're going to remain at 100% for this one. So I won't wait too much longer. So the next question is, which social media platform do you use the most? Think about just time spent on the day, every day. Okay. It's a pretty good mix. Facebook is coming in at #1 with Instagram at 2, and then followed by Twitter. Okay, so this is interesting. Not a lot of action on LinkedIn, I see. And another question for you all to consider is, which social media platform do you believe your ideal clients interact with the most? Okay, that totally wasn't a setup, right? did I prime you all to think that it's LinkedIn? Yes, it's LinkedIn, right? No, I'm just kidding. I think the fact is that when we think about LinkedIn as a platform, there are so many people who engage with it specifically for career reasons, right? And so that makes it often a really great space where people look for not only people who are able to really kind of gauge, you know, what connections are beneficial for their networking in terms of career development, but then also just looking for potential partners in work, right? And that's a really big thing for us as independent consultants. We really want to be able to connect with folks who are looking for opportunities to work together with others, right? And I will say that I'm not going to ignore this piece here where Facebook with 40%, right? I think that definitely does factor into another platform in social media that's important to pay attention to. And today, just for the purpose of today, I'll be really focusing in on LinkedIn. And I know that Twitter also plays a pretty big role in terms of growing awareness, which I'll get into in a little bit. So last couple of questions here. I think this is the last one, and then we'll kind of get into the main content. So where do you focus the majority of your marketing efforts right now? And again, this doesn't have to be, you know, confessions or anything like that, but just, you know, in terms of how you approach marketing or how you think about even the concept of marketing, where do you think most of it kind of happens in the moment? Yeah, right. And I think the obvious answer for a lot of us is building the network. A lot of our business and our clients come from our previous relationships, our existing relationships, or word of mouth that our current clients, you know, spread to others, right? So this makes a lot of sense. There's a little bit of interest in social media marketing. I see that. That's great. That's good to know. And let's see if we might not shift the interest in that to a little bit even more, more, right, after some of the content in this presentation. So there are actually worlds of expertise within each of these different marketing tactics, right? If you read, you know, kind of the current business books, a lot of time and energy is spent on discussing email marketing. It's a very heavy kind of marketing tactic right now out in the world. So that's another area where if you're serious about kind of expanding just kind of the mass reach of the product or the service that you're offering, you know, I'd seriously consider email marketing. And some of the LinkedIn principles and concepts that I'll be covering today kind of blend into building out an email marketing system. And we can talk about that later, folks that are interested, but just something to consider as a part of marketing theory in general. So I can't see the chat. So Matt, please let me know if there are questions or things that are coming in. I'd be more than happy to kind of, you know, address those as we roll forward. So to begin, you know, I really like the concept that we talked about in a previous I see TIG discussion where we were talking about email marketing, right? And kind of marketing more generally, and how to think about it and raise awareness. And so this, here is what I'd like to really kind of focus on, the concept of the purchase funnel. And so with marketing, when we think about a potential client's journey, we think about the different phases that they have to go through in order to kind of arrive at our service as the correct option for them, right? And it begins with the very top of the funnel, where you have this layer of awareness. And that's really about, how do we get people to know that we exist, right? What are the things that we can put out into the world just to start gaining presence and visibility? And eventually, over time, as people become more aware of your services, if you are sharing the right kinds of content, they'll be able to develop this level of familiarity. And so this is helping people understand what we do, right? So not only do they know that XYZ business exists out in the world, but they understand what we do and kind of our perspective on what we're trying to accomplish. And this really moves them into this consideration phase of the funnel, right? Where we're helping them understand why we're the best provider to solve the challenge that they're facing. So is it because we have a certain lived experience? Is it because we have a certain niche expertise, right? Is it because of a certain thing that sets us apart that other people aren't seeing in terms of, offering evaluation services, right? So really kind of understanding what would set you apart is helping people get into this consideration phase. Because ultimately, when you move down to purchase, you want them to get to the point where they're convinced that you have the unique product or solution that they need, and that ultimately they're convinced enough to give you money, right, in return, in exchange for your services. And then of course the last piece of the funnel is building loyalty. So how do we help them to purchase again, buy more, refer you to others? And this is of course what we alluded to naturally kind of happening with our networks, right? So when I began thinking of social media as a source for marketing, I really had to make a mindset shift. And this is something that Leah teaches in her course called Pack Your Pipeline, which I'll chat about a little bit toward the end. And this is where we have a mindset shift of thinking of LinkedIn as a landing page, right? Think of it as another website, right? Basically, that is in a platform ready to use for you that you didn't even really have to build, right? But you have to really work on creating it and honing the contents of it so that it's speaking to your ideal target market or your ideal potential clients. And so, thinking about things like, who is your profile landing page for, right? Who is your ideal client? What does that person look like? What do they care about? What are their pains and their struggles, right? What experiences have they gone through to bring them to the point where they are right now, where they're either in need of a service or they're trying to solve a problem that you have the capacity and capability to help them solve, right? And you want to really make clear that you're the person for that opportunity, right? That there's a good, a happy circumstance, right? Where you have the ability to solve their problem and they have a problem that needs to be solved. And that, that you're really focusing on creating the awareness that that opportunity is there for them on a consistent basis. So just to go over a little bit of why this is compelling as a platform, right? Thinking about the stats, we know that on average, 260 million active users are on LinkedIn, right? Or rather not on average, but 260 million active users are on LinkedIn. On average, 100 million users log in each day. And then 61 million users are senior level influencers, right? So this gives us a little bit of a knowledge of the landscape that is LinkedIn, right? It's this big network of professionals who are seeking to really connect with each other. They use it at varying levels and at various frequencies, but it's really interesting for me to know that roughly a third of, more than a third of the active users are logging in each and every day, right? That's a really, really big audience. So a little bit more on the numbers for you all. Only 3 million users are creating content weekly on LinkedIn. That's just over 1% of users, right? So this was a really interesting mindset shift for me, because I never really saw myself as using LinkedIn as a platform to get ideal clients, right? I was really kind of stuck in this mindset where, it's really just word of mouth. It feels super salesy or not authentic somehow to try and reach out to people, in an online platform. But what's interesting to me, and what I really took away from this course, is that content is a way to stand out on LinkedIn. Producing content, using it to stand out and really speak to your target audience, and establishing yourself as an expert in the area that you work on. These are all really critical elements that would help, people really stand out. And the fact that only 1% of users are really making use of this, like it just really invites all the potential that there is, right, of how many more users can be generating content that's useful for their clients or their potential clients. So when I talk about creating content that's really useful, what do I exactly mean by that? So I'll get into a little bit of what content that engages look like. And there's heavy content, which includes, your point of view or personal philosophy. These can be things like how-to posts if you're wanting to write about a case study on ripple effects mapping, right? Or thinking about things that are maybe really specialized, but that your potential clients might have an interest in. You can have rants, right? I'm kind of unfortunately getting more into ranting, but I try to contain that a little bit on LinkedIn. But things that you're really passionate about, that you want people to know your point of view in the world, and let that kind of shape and influence how people are thinking about a topic or an idea. So this goes along with training and educating people, whether it's on your subject matter expertise or something that, you've been trained on or engaged with. I think that putting out this type of content really helps people get a sense of how your approach to training and working with them goes. Also addressing common objections that potential clients might have in working with you. Like, so if you're helping small businesses increase their social media marketing, one common objection might be, well, that feels super salesy, and how can I do that without actually feeling like I'm inauthentic, right? And so really kind of addressing that objection head on would be one example. You can also post case studies of clients, and this I think has a double benefit of allowing, of course with their permission, if they want to remain anonymous, sharing anonymously, but really kind of helping people see the impact of your work, right? And also educating at the same time. And then light content includes stories, anecdotes, sharing client results in a more, kind of anecdotal way, perhaps sharing interesting facts, or maybe just like slice of life. This is the interesting thing that I did recently that really gave me a new insight or perspective, or anything that is inspiring. I know a lot of people share quotes. Or Q&A posts, ask a question, really engage your audience on, is evaluation in art or science, right? Something that just really kind of creates discussion that's engaging. So, and again, this is all going back to this piece of the funnel where we're talking about awareness and familiarity, right? So this is LinkedIn is a great resource to start people down that funnel, right? And essentially what you're doing by creating a profile page that's serving as a landing page and creating content that's really speaking to your potential target audience, that's engaging, is you're really doubling down on people who are aware and becoming familiar with your service. So the next piece is then also, so in tandem with thinking about, treating your profile as a landing page, really updating it to make sure that the content on it is speaking to the pain and the struggle and the benefits, right, that potential clients would get in terms of working with you. And then also thinking about the content that you're putting out and making it engaging. Part of creating a system to reach the right people is paring down your LinkedIn network to only ideal prospects or referrers, right? And this is also somewhat of a mindset shift. It's a little bit, out of kind of the realm of thinking that I initially had, and still I haven't completely pared down my network to only ideal prospects and referrers, because I have a lot of relationships that I like to maintain outside of that, right? Like folks who I've been in programs with or cohorts with, or, grad school folks, or, people in my family and extended networks, right? So I think there's still obviously like value in maintaining those connections. But I think the idea and concept here is to really understand how can we begin to right size our network on LinkedIn so that people who aren't necessarily in our ideal prospect kind of world wouldn't be, kind of exposed to our posts. Because so I think one important thing to understand here is that whenever you do a home feed post on LinkedIn and you're, say for example, you're sharing amazing content, that content is only being seen by a fraction of your network, right? And so having your network really kind of honed in to people who are your ideal prospects or referrers, and having that be a lion's share of a part of your network will really kind of ensure that the posting and the content creation that you're doing is getting in front of the right eyes, right? And so that is a part of kind of treating LinkedIn as a system, again, for creating that familiarity and that awareness of you as a consultant. So what I have implemented as a result of some of these courses is getting into the habit of posting on LinkedIn through my home feed regularly. And another tip that I would have is to create an engagement pod of at least 15 to 20 people who kind of cross promote each other's posts, who like, who comment. This was yet another mindset shift that I had to go through in this course, because initially I felt like, oh, well, isn't that kind of cheating? Like you're kind of coordinating efforts between people to raise your engagement level on social media. But the reality of it is that the people who have been super content creators, who have been using the system in a very massive scaling way, have far more kind of coordinated and intense pods of people who respond to them. So if you're talking about getting just like a group of 15 to 20 people together who are committed to kind of cross promoting each other's posts, it's just kind of getting you level in terms of the playing field, in terms of kind of the super users and content creators on LinkedIn. So last few kind of slides here is around this concept of lurkers, right? And this is a super interesting concept that I came across, of people who don't follow or like or actively comment or post on LinkedIn, right? But these are the people who have the biggest potential to activate the warm part of your network. And I think that this is huge and actually cannot be understated. So as many likes and comments as it's great to get on your content, if you are actively engaging on LinkedIn, what's more important is that posting content regularly helps you be seen by more people than you really know, right? And that's because there are so many lurkers. And it's fascinating because I've been emailed by people who, clearly they read my posts, they're engaged with them. I, in fact, got a comment from a researcher and writer based in California, who emailed me and said, your posts on LinkedIn are prolific, right? She had never liked a post. She had never commented or anything, any form of engagement. And yet she's out in the community now making referrals to me because of the content that she's been reading silently, right? And so this is a really big opportunity that I think a lot of people don't understand is when you're actively creating content, you are gaining visibility, whether you realize it or not. And I think it's really a good means, at least I've found, of really increasing that awareness and familiarity factor. More people know what you're doing, more people know how to talk about, what you do, and more people, as a result, will have the ability to really kind of create awareness and familiarity for you, in a sense, right? So, and of course, this doesn't all happen immediately. It's a sustained effort over time. And that's something important to remember, like none of this happens overnight. But I think what's important is that it really benefits you by building that community in which you're creating awareness of services. And so, I just went over this without talk about calling your slide. But yeah, so benefits of, kind of approaching LinkedIn of this system is that it increases visibility, it increases the perception of your expertise out in the community. It increases your engagement around an issue. You can use LinkedIn posting as a great method of getting feedback. So if you're wondering if your potential client base or target audience is interested in a certain method, maybe that you haven't tried before or that you're getting more into, you can post about it, and you can kind of use the comments and feedback that you get as a means of understanding where people are in their understanding of that process or that method, right? Or like what questions they might have, or things that you might anticipate as objections, which can also feed into your content creation, right? And you can say, okay, well, I'll write a post about that objection next time, right? And so it's a really great method, I think, to create that feedback mechanism as well. So just to wrap up, my own experience has been that, since I've taken this course and I've implemented some of these methods, I've certainly increased my visibility on LinkedIn, and you can see this on your feed, right? So for some of this, it is helpful to have a paid LinkedIn account. A lot of this can be done without a paid LinkedIn account. I do have I forget what the account is called. I think it's like LinkedIn Pro or something like that. And so if you have a pro account, then you can see how many views your profile page is getting. And so it's interesting because I started posting consistently in October of 2020. And when I posted October, November, and the first slight bit of December, you could see that like the views, the chart was totally like just up, right? And then I took a 3-week hiatus in December, and there was a complete dip back to just like the normal levels of people looking at my profile, which weren't a ton. And then when I started back up toward the middle of January, sure enough, it goes straight up again, right? In terms of the views of my profile. And so people are certainly kind of scoping you out more. They're kind of checking out what you're doing. And of course, I have gotten increased feedback from my network. Even though the people in my engagement pod are not necessarily all evaluators or coming from an evaluation background, they ask questions about my content. And evaluation is only one piece of what I do. I actually work in equity and inclusion, as well as evaluation and strategic planning, kind of tying those together. And so I do get a lot of feedback in terms of questions that folks have, in terms of, if they think an idea is challenging for them, or if they agree, these are all kind of mini feedback mechanisms. And also an increased number of leads coming from cold and lukewarm sources. So again, talking about the people who randomly email you, right? It doesn't happen very often, but the 2 to 3 times that it does, like ever so often happen, like maybe a month or so, I think that is a really great means of just knowing that people are paying attention again to what you're doing. They're interested in your work. And it's a means of maybe kind of starting a few folks down that funnel, right? And I haven't been doing this for long enough. Clearly, it hasn't even really fully been a year to say that, to be able to vouch for the success of following it all the way down the purchase funnel. And in fact, I think the research in kind of our services type of industry shows that customers will typically take anywhere from like 3 to 18 months, which I know is a big range to go down that purchase funnel. So it does require kind of the long game, right? Like it does require some patience. But I will say that it has been generating a lot more interest in my work than if I had not been engaging on LinkedIn regularly. So this is just a little bit of a plug. So heads up, for the programs that I've listed here, I'm an affiliate and I do receive a small referral fee if you sign up with them. But if there are women who are interested in taking Leah Niederthal's Smart Gets Paid Pack Your Pipeline course, which is it's the PYP Accelerator, that's a really great method to just, if you're intrigued to learn more about how you can use LinkedIn as your kind of landing page and how to update your profile and how to start engaging smartly. That's a really great program. And also the Pack Your Pipeline course is available, the full course. So the accelerator program is like a 30-day, like it's just a very like rapid implementation of some of these concepts. And then the full course is a little bit more spread out. You're able to get a little bit more content in there. And so Leah Niederthal does focus on small businesses that are women-led. I'm not sure if there's a male-led equivalent there, or just an equivalent that kind of caters to men-owned or led businesses as well. That I think that would be interesting to find, although I know that several of those resources do exist in kind of the broader marketing world. There are many male authors who kind of talk about this stuff all the time, right? So the other quick piece that I'll share is if you are interested, without actually getting into any courses or signing up for any, products necessarily, there is a little resource that Leah shared with me, which lives in this link. I'll post these links in the chat so that you can click on them later. But I guess just to go back to this, you can understand how to power up your LinkedIn profile by following these tips that Leah shares. And so I'll stop sharing my screen and drop these into the chat. And in case you want to learn more about my experience, I'd be happy to share about it anytime. I'd be happy to chat